Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well as always. This isn't quite the video that I had planned for this week, but the other one isn't done yet. It's one of those situations where you get it half done, realize that you absolutely hate it, so you have to go and redo everything. So I'm doing this video, which I had planned to do a while ago as well. So let's jump in, and y'all can pull up a stump for this story from somewhere. So thank you for watching, and once again, let's jump in. So I just dropped out of college and I really needed a job, otherwise my parents were going to kick me out. I live in the middle of nowhere, high up north, so I couldn't just apply at McDonald's or something. Dad asked any of his friends if they have work or know someone who does. One dude, who lives even further away from any civilization, says he knows a guy who could use some help. The guy owns all sorts of cattle, from cows to domesticated deer. You name it, he probably owns some. It's the middle of the summer, so all of his animals are out in the fields around a mountain he owns land on. It's a pretty normal practice for farmers here. They fence up massive areas and basically just let their livestock roam free within to their liking. Usually they'll check up on them every day or hire someone to look after them on the spot. Apparently this year he underestimated his workload and spread his livestock out far too much. That's where I would come in. I would have to live in this little cabin in the middle of nowhere and check up on the surrounding animals every day, fix broken drinking troughs, and clean up the paths leading through the woods. The cabin was about 3 hours away from the nearest village, 6 hours by foot. Food would be brought to me every week on a Friday, and I was free to do as I pleased when done with my work. The pay wasn't half bad too, and I was only going to be there for like 3 months, so I thought, screw it, why not? I meet up with the guy. It's a younger lad, probably in his 30s. He seemed kinda on edge, but he was pretty chill. I figured he was just stressed out. He gave me some more details about the job, like how the electricity in the cabin worked. It was solar. Mentioned how there was a lot of wildlife and how I shouldn't get scared when I hear weird noises in the distance. And even then, aside from the occasional wolf being in the area, there wasn't too much to be afraid of. Bears hadn't been sighted in years, and there weren't any psycho deer, lol. So basically, I would just get paid to relax in a nice cabin in the middle of nowhere while doing minimal work. It sounds too good to be true. I took the job regardless, as I didn't really have much choice. I start the next week and get picked up by the guy, now my boss. I drive up some sketchy mountain paths through forests and farther away from civilization. The scenery is beautiful though, completely untouched nature, birds chirping, comfortable temperature, feels good. We get to the end of the road and need to hike up 30 more minutes just to get to the cabin. Nothing seems or really feels out of place. It literally just feels like I'm on a vacation for the next 3 months. I grab my backpack and follow my boss up the path. Eventually we get to the cabin, and it's about 6,500 feet above sea level. There's a beautiful view of the valley that we just drove through. The cabin is in the middle of a small clearing and even has a creek next to it for fresh drinking water. The boss shows me how to use everything, from the fire stove to the water boiler. I won't bore you with all those details. The cabin is solar powered, so I have to watch the battery. I didn't plan on using that much tech anyway, so I don't really worry about it, but it's important to note for later. He says that if anything happens I should give him a call, that it doesn't matter what time it is, and he puts a lot of emphasis on the last part. My phone actually has signal out here, not much, but enough to make calls. Explains one more time what I have to do and hands me a map with the paths I should check. This also includes specially marked areas where the cows I'm supposed to look after oftentimes graze. Just before he leaves, he tells me that he'll be on the other side of the mountain looking after his yaks or something, wishes me a pleasant stay, and takes off. So I'm finally alone, and I don't have much to do the first day. It's past noon, so I just set up my sleeping stuff, put all my food in the cupboards, and of course, take care of myself. Nothing much happened for the first few days. I simply repaired holes in fences, I cleaned up stuff like branches, rocks off the hiking paths, and looked around grazing spots to see how the cows were doing. After some time, week 3 rolls around. Nothing special had happened up until this point. I was on my usual routine checkup of one of the hiking paths. There's a dead deer on the path. It's in a pretty uncomfortable part of the woods. I could never really put my finger on it. Even at the time, the place just felt kind of weird. It was usually covered in shadow since a nearby mountain would block sunlight, so it always had this gloomy atmosphere, and that's what I figured it was. So of course, the one dead deer I find, it would specifically be here. The deer didn't seem to have been killed by anything or anyone. There were no flesh wounds, there was no blood, and there was nothing broken. Its neck was kind of weird though. It wasn't broken, but it looked long. Again, I'm pretty sure that it wasn't broken, it was just unnaturally long. I didn't take a picture of it. You'd see dead animals out here all the time, especially in the winter, so it wasn't all that special. A couple days go by without anything special, and then howling starts at night. Now, for those who don't know, in mating season, stags roar to attract females. Look it up on YouTube if you want to know what it sounds like. It's insanely loud, and from a distance it can sound pretty eerie, as the echo will distort it. But mating season here is in late August to September, and this is early July. So it sounds like something exhaling really loudly, almost like it's wind, but it's just a tad bit vocal. It's hard to explain, really. It was windy a couple of times, and it didn't really sound anything like it. So I think nothing of it. I mentioned it to my boss that Friday when he delivers me my food for the week. He says it's normal to hear those things out there. It can be just the wind blowing through the trees or various animals. He does mention the fact that there is a hunting rifle left behind by hunters for hunting season in one of the cupboards. Kinda weird how he never told me that before and is only telling me it now, after I mentioned howling. And I noticed that the boss seems on edge again. He looks from right to left a lot, from one end of the clearing to the other. I ask him if he's okay, and he just says that he's just a bit exhausted from carrying all the supplies up the mountain. Some more time passes, and it's week 5. I'm doing my daily routine, where I can still hear the howling off in the distance. It still occurs every once in a while, just usually at night. I'm not too bothered by it. After all, there's lots of wildlife around, any of which could make a sound like that. Or it could just be echo plus wind and then some kind of distortion going on. But I find more dead animals on and off the paths. It's usually small birds and foxes, but I do find another deer. All of them without any sort of visible wound or blood or anything. But all of them looked like they have some body part that was just off looking in some way. The necks or legs, their skulls seeming just a bit too long. Again, I can't really put my finger on what was wrong with them, but it feels like something was really off about them. It's as if someone opened MS Paint, pasted a picture in it, and slightly stretched out a body part. Enough to be noticeable, but too little to really stand out if you're not looking for it. So this goes on for a long while until week 8. At this point, I only have a couple more weeks left to go. My boss still seems on edge every time he comes by. Always asks if the cows are fine without saying hello or whatever, whenever he shows up. The cows are always fine up until this point, even their calves. None went missing and none looked hurt. Literally the next evening, I hear the cows in clear distress in the distance. I think it's one just trying to regain a rank or something in the herd, so it charges at another cow or something. Cows are pretty competitive in their herd. They're always trying to gain a rank or lower another cow's rank. They fight sometimes, even to the death. It's pretty brutal. I decide to just continue sleeping for the night and check it out the next day. I sleep with earbuds in, which, looking back in hindsight, is a terrible idea. The next day, I woke up to the bells of cows outside. All the cows are surrounding my cabin, just kind of standing around, not eating, which is very unusual. I count them as I always do, and I notice that one cow and one calf are missing. I call my boss and tell him what happened. He sounds extremely distressed now and just tells me to look for them. He says he can't come right now as he can't leave his post or something. So I spend some time looking for the missing animals, but I don't find them anywhere. I have to cut the search short for a while though, as the weather randomly starts to get bad. The cows stay around the cabin that night. It makes me feel a little safer at least. I still decide to take the hunting rifle out of the cabinet and put a wood cutting axe near the entrance. I don't really know what model it was, because I'm not really into guns. That night though, I noticed that something is weird. There's tiny red lights off in the distance. It's stormy and cloudy. The fog shouldn't really allow for light to come through like this, but there's nothing but wilderness in that direction, so I know it's not from a village or a car, but the light just stays there. I nope pretty hard and I close all the blinds. The light turns off at some point, leaving me in complete darkness. I check the battery next to my bed. It's empty. It was almost full a couple of hours ago. This thing lasts for multiple days when it's only used to keep lights on in short showers. I nope even harder. I use my phone flashlight to look for candles and matches. The howling returns though, slightly louder than usual. Literally sounds like there's whispers within the sounds, but they're barely audible. I lock both the locks on the door and listen to music on my phone all night to keep me distracted. I eventually pass out and wake up the next morning. The storm has finally cleared, but there is still cows missing, and now 2 more of them are gone. I'm kind of going crazy at this point. I call my boss and I tell him what happened. He tells me I have to leave immediately and he'll come pick me up at the end of the road. And that's kind of where it ends. I don't really know what happened. The boss didn't talk that much on the way down the road, and he was pale as hell. I was too, most likely. I didn't feel like talking either. I actually met him at a bar a couple months later. Apparently he sold everything, and is now invested in beer brewing or something. I asked him about the red lights, and he simply nervously chuckled and said it was probably just lights off of power masts to keep planes from crashing into them. And I brought up the fact that there were no power lines near that place. So, let me know what you thought about that story. I think, in my opinion, if it's a real story, then it was aliens and they were like doing some weird stuff with the animals. Or there could be some radiation nearby somewheres and it kind of mutates the animals. I don't know. That's just my thoughts. Let me know what yours are. And if you thought it was real or thought it was plausible, exaggerated, or even fake, let me know. And yeah, thank you for watching. And if you liked the video, then like and subscribe and all that good stuff. The next video, hopefully, will be like kind of a big cryptid video where I go over sightings of like Bigfoot, Mothman, Glimmerman, I think it's called. I keep mixing up Glimmerman and Glitterman. And just some other cryptids that I've come across in my research and stuff. So yeah, stay tuned for that video and get subscribed for it. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Thank y'all for watching and thank y'all for pulling up a stump.